Hello, I'm Joanne Woodward. The publishing event of the year 1962 was the novel Ship of Fools. Katherine Anne Porter had been working on the book for 20 years, and now it was out, and it quickly became an international success. The author who'd grown up poor got rich. Porter's life had been a coat of many colors, woven of many talents. She married 4 times, she lived around the world. A friend said she could have gone into politics or been chef at the Ritz. But Katherine Anne Porter was devoted to the craft of fiction, a writer's writer. The capstone of her career came 3 years after Ship of Fools with the publication of her collected stories in 1965. She won the Pulitzer Prize, the National Book Award, and the gold medal of the National Institute of Arts and Letters. She was 75 years old. It had been a struggle. Where she grew up, most women wrote only letters. She was determined to write stories. She gave her life to the art of fiction, mining her memories for the nuggets she polished into precious stories. And now, a portrait of that life and a presentation of 3 of those stories.
She was like the Southern woman that I'm used to, that talks a great deal and very animated and not a bit Bohemian at all. She probably was probably one of the most Bohemian people around, but she was always the beautiful woman.
I like to think of a spring-heeled walk when we went Yaddo in those days. On those summer evenings, we were expected to wear long dresses into dinner, and she and I walked together from the farmhouse we were both staying in, and as she would walk, lifting her skirts through the long grass in the evening, that spring-heeled walk, just so anticipating no telling what.
And I remember that first time, too, some reference that she made to her ankles. I thought she was quite an old lady. She was probably 40, and I was 20 or so. But she was very vain about her ankles, and they were pretty beautiful.
The personality just lit up the whole room. You wouldn't see anybody else. Like a great movie star. My cousin and I often on the telephone say how we still miss her. When she left, she really left a hole in our lives because she made you feel important. I could have a conversation with her, and even though sometimes you felt like you were listening to a monologue, nevertheless, she would take you with her someplace where you'd never been. I mean, she would stretch your intelligence.
Her life was very free. Her love life was quite promiscuous.
White hair, and this very youthful face, and great charm, and piercing kind of intelligence.
The first person I ever met or knew who very consciously was aware that she was an artist and that she was practicing an art, and who respected it above all things that anyone could do. It was all out in the open, that you didn't secretly, I want to do this. It was there, just as much in the world as a tree or something like that. She always knew what she was doing.
The country of my childhood. This space and memory is filled with landscapes shimmering in light and color. The native land of my heart. All the life of that soft blackland farming country, full of fruits and flowers and birds, with plenty of water, many little and big rivers, and the small clear branch of the Colorado, full of colored pebbles. Indian Creek, where I was born.
She was born in 1890 in a 2-room cabin on the Texas frontier. She left Texas in 1919, determined to be a writer. she became one of our great short story writers, known for a string of masterpieces. Often, she returned in her stories to her Texas years. She created an alter ego, the character Miranda, in order to explore that early life. Though she gave Miranda a heritage more aristocratic than her own, she used the character to probe the pain and poverty of her real childhood. When Porter died in 1980, she had not lived in Texas for 60 years, but she had written about it for most of her life.
Texas, you might say, the landscape, of her childhood. I think she had really deep roots there. It was really the homeland of her heart.
She was wonderful at singing an old ballad. Bury me beneath the willards, beneath the weeping willow tree. With her voice quavering and rising and falling.
She created in Miranda partly the little girl that she was, and partly the little girl that she would have liked to have been.
It was hard for me at first to think that I completely understood her stories because I have a visual mind and like things translated into what the eye sees. And then I learned through her work that what she was seeing was not just what is in front of your eyes. In fact, she doesn't see that. She's talking about the inner vision, what is looking, the mind that's looking at it, and what she perceives of things out of her memory or her life or so on. It's a different vocabulary from any I had been used to.
Something in the grave. What is that? If you'll show me, I'll show you. No, you guess first. I'll give you 2 guesses. A penny. You found a penny? No, but it's made of gold. Gold. A gold tooth? Nope. I told you couldn't guess it. What'd you find? Yes. A pearl, but nope. Guess again. An arrowhead? Nope. All right. Showdown. 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's pretty. I wonder whose it was. I don't know, but I bet it's real old and valuable. You don't want a lady's ring. Can I have it? I'll trade you. Hey, you know what this is? It's a screw head for a coffin. I bet nobody in the whole wide world has one like it. I think we better go now. One of the sharecroppers may see and tell on us. Shoot, they're not sharecroppers anymore. They're bosses now. Where are you going? To get a drink of water. I'm thirsty. This land's been sold too. We'd be trespassing for sure if we went in here. No, we wouldn't. Grandmother put that well in herself.
Miranda, ain't it? Did you Miranda Ray? Paul? What are you children doing around here?
We're on our way to hunt rabbits.
Looks to me like you're pumping water.
It used to be our grandmother's.
Bless you. Your heart, child, so it did. Now it's ours.
Yes, ma'am. It used to be where to hunt rabbits.
Looks to me like you're pumping water.
It used to be our grandmother's.
Bless your heart, child, so it did. Now it's ours.
Yes, ma'am.
If you're thirsty, why then go ahead and drink as much as you want. Go on.
We had all we want, thank you.
We got visitors?
Paul and Miranda Ray. They thirsty.
For goodness sake, child, your pappy lets you run around like that? What can he be thinking of, letting you prance around in overalls like you was a boy?
I hear you ain't studying nothing but racehorses these days.
I like overalls.
Well, it ain't right. No, sir. And I seen that big sister of yours. What's her name?
Maria.
I seen that big sister of yours careering around astride a bareback horse. Now, that ain't no way for a girl to ride a horse.
Bareback with a rope around the horse's nose.
Your grandmother, God rest her soul, would have a fit if she could see such carryings on. Miss Sophia Jane always rode her horse side saddle.
Missy, it's against scriptures for you to be going around dressed like that. Your pappy knows better.
He says they'll save my dresses for school. He don't want to run with waste not, what not. That's what he says.
Oh, well, he'd know all about that, I reckon.
There's a great deal about clothes and fashion and the forms of etiquette and the strict, rigid ways that Granny imposed. But I think it was just another manifestation of what Katherine Anne's Miranda or the spirit of herself was trying to get out of. I think that was just something in life that could be seen on the outside that stood for something inside. I mean, that helped flesh it out. I don't mean it wasn't real. It was real. She had to get away.
You know, she didn't write about Mustangs and cowboys and coyotes.
I'll ride bareback if I feel like it. And I'll wear overalls, too. Who wants to wear dresses? You're the one who wanted to stop and get a drink of water.
Katherine Anne was Miranda, and my father was Paul, her brother in the story and in real life.
Paul, let's go home. What's the matter with you? I thought we were going hunting. I don't want to hunt. Don't you want to kill something? Then you should have stayed at the house and shot till you can. I'd just as soon. You stay right here and be quiet and don't spoil my shots.
He was one of the few people in the world that Aunt Catherine trusted. He was the most totally honorable man. My father slapped me upside the ears and called me out and telling a lie. And said, you know, to lie is to fly in the face of God and to admit fear of man. He had great intelligence. He didn't have ambition. It was his failing. She always said he was probably the best member of the family.
Well, the grandmother certainly was a person of her own age and did have some very strong Victorian tendencies. All the little children were afraid of her. You see, she wasn't quite 2 when her mother started to die. Her mother gave birth to a child. The house must have been full of terror and gloom. After all, people would live very close together in a small house at that time. And I think that Katherine Anne always remembered that, and I think it was associated in her mind with childbearing. And it was quite a struggle for the grandmother to raise those children and keep them fed and clothed. Katherine Anne did feel that as a child she was always grubby, uncared for, unkempt, unwashed. Apparently the father lost all interest in looking after the children or in doing much work after his wife died.
He was a very handsome old man, but absolutely feckless. Had a mean streak in him. I didn't care for him. But the grandmother was the one who held the family together, raised it, moved it, ran the farm, and also taught them everything, instructed them in morals and whatever education they had, which was, pretty much at that time got around the house.
The main thing about the grandmother was that she was a great storyteller. She used to tell stories about the family's past.
No legend is ever true, but I believe all of them are founded on some germ of truth. And even these truths appear in different lights to every mind they are presented to. The legend is that work of art which goes on in the human mind.
Jim Billy,
Well, what do you want, child?
we need another tombstone.
I swear. I never let you have no peace. Ignoramus don't even know Emancipation Day done come and gone. Well, I ain't no slave no more. No, sir. I done served my time. Done my due.
Please.
Now, you better leave me alone. I'm gonna chop off your ears and pin them to that hound dog of yours.
Pretty please.
Oh, one of them slavery times. They used to take them out, tie them down, and just whip them with this great big leather strop. It must have been an inch thick, as long as your arm, with these little holes bored in them. So that each time they hit them, the hide and the meat would just come away from their bones in little tiny chunks. Mm-hmm. The next day they had to go to work out in them fields. That's right. Got to get back out to work in them fields. Or they whip you all over again.
Did they ever act like that to you, Uncle Jim Billy?
No, ma'am, no, ma'am, no, ma'am. They never done that to me, but that's what they done to them down in them rice swamps. No, I always work close to the house here. Or in town with Miss Sapphire. But down in them swamps.
Didn't they ever die?
Died. Of course they died.
Can you carve safe in heaven on that, Uncle Jim Billy?
To put over a tame jackrabbit, missy, those people in the swamps, they didn't have no tombstones. They used to stake them on the ground all day and all night and all the next day. And they bound their hands and their feet together so they couldn't scratch, and then the mosquitoes would come and just eat them alive. They'd eat them so bad they just bite them so that the whole body would just swell up like a balloon. You could hear them just howling and praying. Nary a drop of water or a mouthful of bread. Now, you take this tombstone. Now, I don't want you to bother me no more. You understand? Give me my thing. Somebody don't watch out. They don't get their hide, skin, and nail up on the barnyard door. Yeah, I mean it now. Better watch out. Some misbehavior's teeth gonna get pulled.
To make a false set for old man Long? The old tramp? I hate
The only reason I ain't already took care of you ignoramus is I got too much work to do.
Aunt Catherine was really extraordinarily sensitive. It was just like all the nerve ends were exposed in her whole body, and things affected her. She never forgot anything. I think her whole history was right in this one present moment. You know, she simply never forgot anything. She might alter it a little in her mind, but...
She did say in one interview, "I'm a member of the guilt-ridden, white-pillared crowd." But she was always faced with the fact, really, that that was not what her past had been and what her family life was like. She had to invent it.
No conversation I ever had with Katherine Anne had any deceit in it, whatever, or any wish to deceive. I think that would have bored the devil out of her to have tried to fabricate some kind of fancy. She had more to think about than that sort of.
She took the autobiographical kernel, of course, here, there, and the other. She had to put it all through the hopper of her intense transformation.
She was raised in a very religious household. Her grandmother was a very devout Christian woman, and I think a fundamentalist, really.
In a Southern sense, the grandmother who embodied the old order. I mean, that was the real, genuine old order that was in the old lady.
Chiefly, she was the one force in her life that was stable. She said that, you know, even anger, if it's always there, is something dependable. It was a dependable source, and one of the few dependable constants, really, in her life.
But everything that came after her, that depended on her, that hung around her, and so on, and the dispersal of the children and all of that, weren't the true old order. And everything got distorted and proved to be not really so. And I suppose Miranda was really the only one of the grandmother's descendants who was clear-eyed enough to see the difference, which was borne in upon her after she got old enough to see. And then she saw the travesties that happened to the travesties that the lives of some of the people became.
Yeah. That's right, and Katherine Anne was that right through life. Those were the person with the eyes of keen curiosity.
What Katherine Anne saw was where somebody failed someone, or where somebody... There is always a sense of betrayal, I think, in her stories of one kind or another.
I want to go to the circus so bad. Daddy said he'll talk to her.
Quit wiggling, girl.
Don't tell me what to do.
Now, don't you want to look pretty for the picture? Now, settle down and behave. Now, you be still. You are a willful child.
Mother, let her come with us. We've got a whole section reserved. There'll be plenty of room.
No, Harry. Is everybody ready for the picture? We don't want to waste this gentleman's time.
Hurry up, Dicey. You're as slow as Christmas.
What harm can it do her? Let her come.
I only let you talk me into this outing in the first place because of all the family being here. You know I don't believe in this kind of entertainment.
Miranda's family.
She's only 6 years old. Circus is no place for a child that age. Dicey?
Yes'm. Good thing for them man-eating tigers you won't be there. You're so spoiled to make them sick.
I'm so hot I'm about to melt. You mean warm, dear. Warm.
Everybody ready for the picture?
Is Miranda going with us?
Please, Grandmother, let her come. It'd be so much more fun.
Dicey can look after her.
Very well. Just this once, since it's a family reunion. It's against my better judgment.
Hurry, hurry, hurry.
They're about children in reference to adults who can be the corrupting influence. And there's the go-between between the childhood and the world of adults. That is its danger to the trusting and loving heart.
Come on, let's go. Let's go. P9, get it up. Let's go. Get it up.
Have you ever seen so many people in one place?
Looks like fleas in a dog's ear.
Most of our stories are about the lurking dangers of betrayal, and not just unadulterated childhood, it's adulterated childhood.
Darcy, what are those little boys doing down there?
Down where?
What are they doing?
You just mind your own business and stop throwing your legs around. Don't you pay any mind. Plenty of monkeys right here in the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome one and all to the new Toll Brothers Colossal Show. Our world-renowned act, the greatest punchers of all time, Willie and Billy. On the trapeze, the lovely Miranda. Introducing that fantastic jester of the high wire, from the far east, Abdul. This is the all-new Toll Brothers Colossal Circus. And now, performing 25 feet in the air without benefit of a net, the death-defying Prince of Clowndom, the fabulous Hero.
Take her home. Get her out of here now.
Take her away, Darcy.
Rain chick, get your rain chick.
So what good that little piece of paper gonna do me? Can't you sit like this young in the seat, too?
Little me. Little
scaredy cat. It's a big old baby. Never go nowhere. Never see nothing. Come on now, hurry up. Always ruin everything for other folks. Oh, and nobody has no good time. Come on now. You want to go home and you're going there. Big baby.
It all begins in childhood, you know, the expectations and the hope and the wish or the will and what befalls it. That's what the tension of her stories is.
How you feeling, dear?
Miranda, you missed the best part. You should have seen the camels running round and round the ring, with the big fat man in flying robes making them dance, and the juggler who tossed fire into the air. What about the clowns? They were the funniest things with those dogs dancing around, and the elephant who stood up on his hind feet and did all kinds of tricks. There was this lady who stood up on a horse and danced. Oh, that lady? She was something. I like those clowns. She had golden hair. She was so beautiful. Everybody was enjoying themselves today while her little sister was missing her first circus and running everything for Dicey. Poor Dicey. I feel so sorry for her. Can you imagine her being afraid of that funny old clown with the white face?
Children, if you want supper, I think you could go help out in the kitchen, don't you?
Yes, Miss Yes.
And quietly.
Well, Mother, what did you think of that show?
I'll say this. There were some things in it that weren't fit for young eyes and ears. Not edifying. Not edifying at all.
Well, that basket of young doesn't seem to be too much damaged.
How can we tell? The fruits of their present are in a future so far off neither of us may live to know whether harm's been done. That's the trouble.
You missed it, baby. What good did that do you? Miranda! Miranda!
a good spanking is what you need.
Dicey, please don't be mad at me. Please don't be so mad. I can't bear it.
Just shut your eyes and go to sleep. I ain't gonna leave you. Dicey ain't mad at nobody. Nobody in the world.
It's the grotesqueries that life throws in the face of children or anyone else in the circus, because she believes that the clown really was about to slide to his death in front of these people who were laughing and cheering. And indeed, people do those things. You know, the behavior of the masses of people in the face of life and death was what horrified her. She could face the reality of it, but not the witnessing of it in a false way or in a cruel and heartless way. That's what she couldn't face. It's all about the whole world of how life betrays you. I'm thinking Katherine Anne's stories. Life betrays you.
She thought of herself as someone just dropped into a family into which she didn't belong. She always had trouble with her own identity as a woman, thinking of herself as a desirable woman, particularly in thinking that she was sexually desirable.
There were points of beauty by which one was judged severely in Miranda's family. First, a beauty must be tall. Whatever color the eyes, the hair must be dark. The darker the better. The skin must be pale and smooth. Lightness and sweetness of movement were important points. A beauty must be a good dancer, superb on horseback, with a serene manner and amiable gaiety tempered with dignity at all hours. And over and above all this, some mysterious crown of enchantment that attracted and held the heart. It was all very exciting and discouraging.
She always wanted to escape her own life and escape into something else, sometimes into other characters. One of her favorite characters was Joan of Arc. And she has said this, that she liked to have the other children tie her up for a burning at the stake. Or sometimes she would get little pieces of corn or grass and make a little figure of Joan of Arc and then set a match to them and watch this burning.
She kept trying to establish herself bases everywhere she went. She kept buying houses and fixing them up as somewhere to be the center of where she wanted to be. But it never worked.
She was baptized Callie Russell, and she was known all through her childhood as Callie. She shed that name later in her life, about the time she shed her first husband. It went from Callie to K.R., finally to Katherine Anne. Well, the grandmother was Katherine Anne Skaggs Porter, known throughout 7 counties as Aunt Cat.
When it started out, of course, as reverence, and I think she always had love and respect and tremendous admiration for the grandmother. She was a kind of heroine to her.
And so there are many tributes to the grandmother in all her fiction. Strong grandmother, a totally effective character, and the feckless father, who became like an elder child in the family. And I think there was often a tension between the puritanical side of her and the side which reacted against that. She liked to smoke and drink and do all the things like being photographed in the nude that her grandmother would not have approved of. At the same time, there was a side to Katherine Anne Porter, which comes out very clearly in the fiction, which was full of moral disapproval. She disapproved of other writers who led rather reckless lives. You know, she called Norman Mailer a middle-aged juvenile delinquent.
And wonderful parties. She loved to give parties, and she was a great artist as a party giver and as a cook.
She liked to generate it, gaiety, and she believed in it, an expression of the lyrical in her nature, and also saw it as a woman's, something a woman could be very usefully. I mean, it's a woman's part to make life around her go well. I think she felt that social persuasion at all times. And it had nothing to do with not facing what was down there, that severe, implacable look she had. Maybe that was the way it would be nice if life could have been like that, you know. Has something to do with hope for the future.
Something dreadful happened when she was 11, and this was that the grandmother then died, famous Aunt Cat who raised her, and this reactivated a lot of the fears and terrors that had happened when her own mother died. It was all the more painful at this time because it happened just at the onset of adolescence.
And she trusts her memory. I think she sees it also as a tragic instrument. I mean, it often sees the tragedy in life as a looking back at something.
She developed a fear that anyone that she really loved and depended on would somehow disappear and die.
She uses death, though. It's part of an eminence from which she can look back and see a whole story in its dramatic shape and form. And she sees a whole life in a story, regardless of the segment she writes about. And birth and death are implied all the way through, and death is a very dramatic, death is part of the drama of a story and of life.
What are you doing, Miranda? Don't go in there. Why not? It's a grave. It had a coffin in it. Well, now it's just a hole in the ground.
The whole story was made for Miranda. Miranda was on the spot with the eyes to see and the heart to feel and the imagination to surmise. That's what makes the story.
Right through the hair. Can I have the skin? Why? Maybe Uncle Jim will make me a fur coat for one of my dogs. Since when you been caring about your dogs? I don't, but I can see them fur coats. Look, we're gonna have young ones. Oh, I want to see. They were just ready to be born. I know, like kittens, like babies. I don't want this kid. I won't have it. Well, it's up to you.
What she sees is the great whole of life and death, the way one is in the other, literally placed within the capsule of the other. And it's the whole thing,
Miranda.
the wonder of the whole
Don't
thing.
you ever forget it. Don't let a soul find out about this. If Dad found out, he'd kill me. He'd say I'm leading you to things he ought not to do. This will be our secret, yours and mine. You hear? Don't you go and forget and blab out something the way you're always doing.
Miranda never told. She did not even wish to tell anybody. She thought about the whole worrisome affair with confused unhappiness for a few days. Then it sank quietly into her mind and was heaped over by accumulated thousands of impressions for nearly 20 years. One day, and without warning, plain and clear in its true colors, the episode of that far-off day leaped from its burial place before her mind's eye. She saw her brother, whose childhood face she had forgotten, standing in the blazing sunshine, again 12 years old, a pleased, sober smile in his eyes, turning the silver dove over and over in his hands.
When my father read this story years later, he said in just sheer childish excitement, she'd gone straight to her father and told him the whole thing. And my father was beaten with a razor strop. When I told her years and years later, and I told her in the most innocent way, and assured her that he had said it innocently and in good humor, but she still got very upset.
Whatever one was going to be was all prepared for before the age of 10. The rest is merely confirmation, extension, development. Childhood is the fiery furnace in which we are melted down to essentials, and that essential shaped for good.
One thing, of course, is that you don't understand the environment you grow up in very well, especially when it's that special, until you do get out and look back in on it, look at it from outside. Otherwise, it can be simply confining, and there were elements in what she grew up in that could have been extremely confining if she hadn't gotten out and then understood it better by looking back in from outside. I can understand that. I guess we all can very well.
The story she wrote of Miranda's childhood or something else when memory sees back. And the distinction between that, again, is what life does to you, to your hopes and your original equipment of innocence and clear-sightedness and trust. Memory is the corrector of a life.
Miranda knew she was young, though she thought she had lived a long time. Her memories, it seemed to her, began years before she was born, in the lives of the grown-ups around her.
In the stories in Texas, memory is often used in an ironic sense because the things that people remember and tell of the old stories, Miranda comes to see were not really the truth, but were the romantic compulsions they had to see things in a certain way, and that they were not to be trusted, and that she would have none of it from then on she would live her own life, as she said, in her hopes and her ignorance.
It's not confined to Katherine Anne Porter or Southerners. Everybody is the same situation now. You all in a box. Everybody's in a box. And some get out of the box, some don't. Everywhere. Everywhere.
I recall her saying that she really loved her family best when they were about 2,500 miles away.
She used to say that when she mentioned in her family that she wanted to be a writer, she was always told, well, why don't you go and write letters? That's a very nice occupation for a woman.
She's a real classic writer, in my mind.
I learned everything from her. I think other writers did, though, you know, we don't always admire the same thing in a great writer, you may think, and I think she is a great writer. What I learned from her had to do as much with the writer's relationship to his subject as from the actual prose language itself. The things you learn from Faulkner and Katherine Anne Porter are things that nobody else could teach you, because these are the first-rate literary minds of their period.
Miranda means looking out in the world in wonder. That's what Miranda means.
That's what it means, the word.
And that's what Katherine Anne did for her life, her lifetime.
Well, all those things I remember. Mostly the pleasure she took in life.
And she conveyed that to other people.
She did. She could show her pleasure, as I used to hear said as a great compliment to someone. She knows how to show her pleasure, and she did. And her displeasure. It's good.
She had this enormous wooden coffin in her closet in Maryland, which she loved to show off to people, and she had painted brightly with flowers and so on. She picked this idea up in Mexico, rope handles. She used to stand in it and all that sort of thing. And after she got ill, she kept insisting that she wanted to be buried with her mother, and just in an urn, cremated. And that's exactly what we did. About a year after she died, I took her ashes down, and we had a little private ceremony in the cemetery, Indian Creek, near where she was born. As I said, just right next to her mother.
So she wrote me from Liège, Belgium, after my father's death. The thought of your father suffering by himself because he didn't want to be troubled to anyone is painful. It must be to you, too. It's very heroic and characteristic of him. That's the way he wanted to die. It takes pure courage above all at his age to know death is near and not ask anyone to know what is happening to you. I love his toughness of spirit, but he shouldn't have expected you to be tough, too, about him. I'm sure everything was clear to him in his mind, but I understand the nature of loneliness myself.
If ever I am to be happy, it is in spring. There are mourning doves in the leafing trees. Their sound always makes me frightfully homesick for something I never knew, a time I can't remember. This time of year, this year of all years, brought the homeless one home again, to the fallen house and the drowsing dust, there to sit at the door, welcomed, homeless no more.
For me.